call the meeting to order. It is 5:30 on the dot. Are there any public comments? I hear crickets. Somebody else? Crickets. Okay.
Anybody?
All right, so number 3 is approval of previous minutes from the regular meeting dated April 1st, 2024. I was not present.
But we do have enough members here to
We do.
approve.
All right, I'm assuming everyone's had an opportunity to review. If so, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from April 1st?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right,
I'll second.
motion by Nathan and a second by Anita. Those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Sounds great to me.
Laura, perfect.
Granted. Okay. Now, number 4, HPC application number 24-007, discussion and potential action on request for a certificate of compliance for a window to be used as a cinema/movie projection area with new framework around the window, and allowance for a projection of off-site advertising associated with the cinema, used for a building located at 105 West Oklahoma Avenue. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The location is the old J.C. Penney building, 105 West Oklahoma Avenue. You may remember that in March, the signage was approved for that facade. The applicant is back, as indicated in the, introduction. There's a few components to this. One of the main ones, there's two main issues, kind of the use and the signage. The use is something that, wasn't thought about when guidelines were done, even if they were most recent guidelines in that. So we don't really have any guidelines to guide us, so it goes back to ensuring compatibility with the historic district and whether the use would be compatible with the district as a whole. Essentially what he's wanting to do, as I indicated, is really another form of public art. It just happens to be in a digitized form. Because right now, as you will see, or you saw in the application, he's not intending to have specific dates or times. It would just have a projection of old movies running from, I think, 7 to 7, he had said in that. But there wouldn't be any formal, again, cinema use like you would have in a movie theater, or even in, even like the theater we have, the drive-in in that. So again, the biggest thing with this is going to be whether or not it's compatible with the downtown. The signage comes into play with the off-site advertising. As I had indicated in the staff report, there's two codes that we have that deal with signage. One is the municipal code, which is pretty much everywhere in the city. However, in that code, it basically says HPC has, if you want to say, precedent over that. So HPC can make a decision on signage that may not be similar to other signage in the community, because again, the unique district that it is, and our sign ordinance saying nothing in the municipal code will overturn or overrule, if you want to say, the HPC guidelines. Our HPC guidelines do say that like off-site advertising and that should not be allowed or is not compatible. However, that is in its more traditional sense. Usually when we talk about off-site advertising, it's physical signs on another property. So even in the downtown, like the bakery, they can't take their sandwich board sign or have a sign and put it at the corner of Division and Harrison, or at, someplace like that. This will be contained on site in that, so there'll be no physical signage that will go elsewhere. But it is a point to consider, because if the HPC were to approve it, it would set somewhat of a precedent for similar uses to be utilized within the HP district. As I indicated, it really isn't going to be a concern citywide, because a decision for the HP is obviously gonna stay within that district. It's not going to affect the community-wide aspect, so we don't have to worry about off-site signage becoming some big issue across the whole city. So with that, I had indicated in my staff report, I think, are some recommendations, I guess, to consider if you were going down the route for approval, to ensure that we keep it to kind of what it was intended to be and it doesn't become a billboard. That would be our biggest concern, is that for some reason, even past the current applicant, they would just decide to start doing advertising and nothing else. So staff had indicated that, again, this is up to the commission, but we would recommend that the cinema use is limited to the center window as shown in the application. The display of any ads is only allowed during the cinema use and cannot comprise more than 40% of total airtime. Standalone display of ads would be prohibited. And then a cinema use that is advertised for a specific date and or time may not attract people or is not allowed unless you go through an exclusive use permit. And I've talked to the applicant about that. If they're down the road, if this were approved, if you wanted to have a specific date and time where people would come and obviously congregate to sit in that, we can, that can be accommodated through a special use permit, just like any other event in the downtown in that. But outside of that, it wouldn't be allowed. So with that, I'll give it back to the commission if you have any questions. Me, if not, as you can see, the applicant is here and he could answer any questions you have.
Okay, Mr. Pollard, if you would come to the podium, please. By the way, thank you for what you did to that building that was not being used at all.
You're welcome.
Even only being able to use the exterior of the building does look better and does have a potential use in town. And I applaud you on that. I would have to say that my only reservation would be that it would look like a lot of the times whenever you go into a business and they just have a screen and they're like advertise here and it just runs the whole time. I'm glad that Dan did say that it needed to be less than, 40 or at least 40% of your airtime. Are these going to be interrupting your videos or your cinema while it's playing, or are they kind of like a preview? And
No, during the day, they just run, like there will be content, advertisement, then back to the content.
Okay.
Almost like watching TV,
Okay.
essentially. But then in the evening, when we play an actual movie, it's uninterrupted. There's no advertising.
Okay.
I'm just
Yes,
not
Val?
really clear exactly. So the screen faces towards the street?
Yes. It's the middle window.
It's in the center of that.
Correct. Inside the gold frame. And so the projection, so like if you're at the drive-in, the
Aaron, do you have a
projector's
picture?
behind you. This projector's on the inside.
I see.
Right here, yeah.
Yeah, I
Here's a
wanted to-
picture of the space.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's that center window.
When I originally saw this, I didn't realize that was the case. I have to say, I just don't know how this fits into the historic downtown Guthrie.
Am I right in you're going to be playing classic movies,
Correct, yeah.
Silent, black and white.
black and white?
But
Old
40%
westerns.
advertisements,
Has this been
up to
done?
40% advertisements.
Has this been
Well,
done
that was the
anywhere else?
recommendation by Dan, that.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I mean,
that
Has this been
was
done
his-
anywhere else?
So that
No.
way it's
No.
not
It's
just
the
a
only one in
standing
history.
billboard,
Really?
Val's
That's cool.
Ozers.
Yes, sir.
That's
The-
something that we're here to talk about as well.
yeah, because
And
the
it's, well,
commi-
Dan and I talked about that. He set the 40% so that it keeps the town from going haywire. My actual percentage of ads is 20%.
and you can limit, I mean, obviously the applicant has a reason for that, but I mean,
Right.
if the commission said we don't want any advertising period, but you can have the cinema use or that, you could do that. Again, I don't know how well that would work for the applicant, but, any of that is at your guys' discretion for approval.
But I don't mind the advertisement portion of it, just so long as, again, it doesn't look like a just scrolling,
And they're-
green, continuous.
It's
of
all
just-
local and regional advertising. So all the advertisers will be within Logan County. So it's places like John Vance,
That's
Dunnigan
helpful.
Farms, the downtown businesses right around it.
Valerie, what are you thinking? I know you
Yeah, depending on the percentage, but it's
I would like
just
to
a
see it
large
less than
version
40.
of the TV screens we see in restaurants, basically. And I don't have any problem with something like that if it were being projected inside. But out towards the street, I have to say, in my personal opinion, I can't support this.
Is it 40% of the 7 to 7, 12 hours a day?
20%.
Is-
20.
he
Yeah, because
is
there's also the
20.
movie after.
Oh.
I'm doing
Yeah.
20%. Dan and I talked about if we keep it at 40%, that makes it to where it's not really viable for anybody else to do the same thing.
But like I said, yeah, it's up to you, the commission on what they would want that to be. Because like I said, you could have it not at all, that's up to you, it's up to the commission.
Well, I think I would rather see the advertisements on this one large screen than him switching out any of those posters and those become advertisements.
I'd rather not see any advertisements facing the street at all in that regard. I mean, I think
What
it
about
would.
people that put up posters for like the Renaissance Fair in their windows?
Yeah, I'm, for advertising purposes, but there are, in that case, there are specific guidelines, and they can't block the whole window, but this is a screen. This is essentially.
Oh, I was talking about the frames that are hanging in the window, the
No,
posters.
no, I'm not,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking about this as the screen. I mean, downtown Guthrie, we exist, we are important in the state of Oklahoma because of historic preservation and what we've managed to preserve here. And I wouldn't have a problem with it anyplace else. I just have a problem with it in historic downtown Guthrie.
Chris, what are you doing with didn't the advertisements only come about because you're using that to actually pay for the renovation of the building itself?
Yeah, that's the whole point, to do it.
Yeah. So without the advertisements, that building would still be sitting there rotting to the ground and
Yeah.
be deteriorating.
What are you doing with the rest of the building?
So far, the use has not come up like a decent use.
Yeah.
Like, if you decided to put, as an example, a theater inside, you would take down too much of the building to retrofit it to be a theater. So
Yeah.
that wouldn't make sense or anything like that.
So it's not necessarily a transition to something else later on at this point, or is it?
Mm,
Just curious,
No,
like-
I mean, the owner of the building would still be interested in it being another antique mall again, like it used to be.
Oh, right.
Like, as far as a use. And then, but right now, that's not in the plan.
Was the idea that it was kind of an art form, be something different downtown?
Yeah,
just like-
absolutely. Oh, yeah, the governor loves it.
Yeah.
It has already generated a lot of buzz as far as people wanting to visit and have visited, so, but yeah.
So do you see foot traffic stopping in front and actually
I hope
watching
so.
the movies? And will
I-
people bring chairs, or are they going to be allowed?
I don't know. I think most people, except when Dan talked about, like, if we do a special use, I think most people won't. There might be 2 or 3 that bring their own chairs to watch a movie, but not a lot. It's just not, because there's not a lot of space there.
Right,
So
right.
people aren't instinctively gonna wanna put down 20 chairs or something. Yeah, so-
Are you going to advertise what movies are?
No.
Is it going to, so
No,
it's
yeah.
random?
Uh-huh, yeah,
So nobody can say, oh, Wednesday night?
correct. You
John
won't
Wayne's
know
on.
what's playing there unless you go and actually see what's
Okay.
playing there.
And their times of the movies and everything, will those be standardized?
There will be one uninterrupted feature every night at
At
7:15 p.m.
7:15, okay.
But it won't be announced what that feature is. You would have to come downtown and look and,
Good way to get
and
people
most all
downtown.
businesses are, but, well, hopefully it gets businesses to stay open later
Right.
downtown, so.
The idea is that it's supposed to be a weird, macabre, like, what in the world is that? It's not supposed to be a movie theater. It's
You're
just
right on
supposed-
target.
Yeah, it's supposed to
Weird.
have just 1910s,
Yeah.
20s period pieces that are just playing there of the Victorian era ambiance.
Supposed to blend.
Yeah, it's supposed to-
They're talkies, right?
Mhm,
And-
yeah.
yeah,
mhm.
like an
And
nostalgia
free, yeah,
type.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we'll have like a Buster Keaton hour that will always happen from like 3 to 4 or something like that.
And then once the final feature is done for the evening, will it then turn off?
We can have it turn off, or I thought it would be nice, since it's in the evening, like there could be like random landscape images of Oklahoma. I don't know if anybody remembers when TV used to end, like they would have things like that. You just see like sunrises and sunsets and landscapes of the state, things like that.
My only thing with, maybe after a certain time it would turn off, there are occupants that live in above, across the street from there.
Yeah, we tested that and talked to the ones
Good.
across the street, because actually the light from it is, if they look out their window, the street light is directly in front of it, so it's brighter than actually the screen,
Okay,
because it's set in the portico.
right,
You know, it's 12 feet back from the sidewalk,
okay,
yeah. So it's not even really on the street
right.
like the other windows, yeah.
What I remember about when the TV was, programming was over, we just saw a test pattern. I don't remember
Yes.
any landscape.
Well, KOC
Yes.
34 used to, before it happened, the test pattern at 2, they would just show, like it was, they did the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by landscapes of Oklahoma, like aerial shots, and then it went to the countdown to 10,
You don't
color
remember
bars, and then over.
you don't remember the national anthem back in the 70s and 60s, like at 11 o'clock, it'd play the national anthem and then go black, you know, till the morning.
And then they,
Right after Guns
I remember this.
they played,
I'm an old soul.
Not necessarily all, but also.
I remember the poem High Flight, I think,
Mhm.
was part of the ending of that. I think that's the name of the poem.
Yeah, and they used to have, I remember one of the stations used to have like 3 or 4 Robert Frost poems come up, just that you could read, and then it would fade away.
What's your criteria for advertisements and for?
Local business within Logan County right now.
So I'm curious about who will do all that production for them.
Most of them have their own, what we suggest to them is that they use something that they're already using on social media.
Oh.
Or it could be just your business card, I guess, something like that.
How long do they pop up for?
Like I think it's 2 minutes, and then the,
Oh, in total.
no, their ad is 20 seconds long.
Oh.
Yeah. Or like 19 and a half seconds, something like that.
Actually, I like that idea, because someone will go, oh, right on one street over, there's a restaurant.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the way that it's designed, so people who are downtown see the local businesses. And then also things like community calendars, like this is what's going on in town this month, this week, how everything put it together.
I think at this point, I mean, essentially everything you've done is, other than, you know, painting and things like that, has already been approved. It looks as though if you wanted to be technical, all of it is temporary signage, none of it is permanent.
Correct, yeah, there's,
Um,
even the gold frame that we put up is not permanent,
Right, yeah.
So,
So, I mean, I would like to see that ad time not be up to 40. I like that you have it around 20.
mine's at
Yes.
20%.
And, you know, obviously nobody wants to cut into somebody else's pocket as to how they're paying for
Mhm.
what they are giving back to the community, essentially is what that is. But I would like to see that airtime be less, closer to 20 to 25% and not 40% of total time, if this is what we're gonna be using as sort of a guideline.
Yeah, I think as long as you keep it at 30% or less, it would dissuade anybody from doing it. It wouldn't technically be profitable for somebody else to do that.
No, and also the thought is that this is a special situation to the business that you're creating here. This is not something where, you know, a neighbor of mine could just say, okay, well, I'm gonna put a TV screen up at my big window and I'm gonna do the same thing. This is specific to something that you are actually doing. You're showing a movie in a nostalgia type of a building in a situation where it even states it's the mini Melba cinema, which we used to have on Harrison.
Which the Melba used to do this. The old Melba had a projector in the window doing rear projection, showing stuff from the
Showing
town.
things on the
And what
same
movie
time.
is coming up next and stuff like that.
Right, and I think that it is a great nostalgia type of situation. definitely is not Victorian, but that's fine. I think it is a great use of a space that had no purpose before. Now, what I am afraid of is exactly that it just becomes like full, just ads and ads and ads and ads. We definitely don't want it to be that at all. So,
Oh, yeah, we have
being able to
different ways.
space all
My
of
goal
that
is-
out would be fantastic. Even if you show short little mini features in between another ad, or a little clip, you know, in between another ad would even be better than just back to back, like,
Oh, no, so the way that it works, it is almost like, so let's say you're watching a Buster Keaton short film. It will break for some ads, and then it'll go right back to that Buster Keaton film, and that will finish.
so it's tastefully done.
Yeah, there's never just like a solid hour of ads or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So even, I guess technically you'd even say hour by hour, it's not more than 20% within the hour that's happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other thoughts?
I will say this, as Dan mentioned, will be setting a precedent.
See, I don't
And
know
so
that,
you said that.
I don't know that it is, because this is specific to exactly the only thing he's doing. He has a screen that is showing movies. It is not the same as if I was going to put a screen up in my business window and start doing ads all the time.
But there may be people who want to do that once they see something like this, and we've set a precedent for it. So there will have to be then, some sort of
Yeah, you have people
hard
doing
and
that
fast
now.
rules for this.
You already have people putting televisions in their windows and showing stuff. And they've been doing it for 5 years now, so it's already happening. And if you do this, now you can,
I don't know
limit
that it shows, I don't know that it sets a precedent, because this is not second to what he was doing. This is it. Does that make sense? I don't have a store plus a running billboard outside
Oh, yeah, I'm not
of
putting
my
one
store.
inside the Pollard. Oh, I
Right,
see what you're
but
saying, yeah.
Do you see what I mean? It's not like it is stating that you can't do this advertisement all the time and project out any kind of a window. This coincides, it goes with his whole business plan.
Sorry, but I disagree.
I don't see that it does.
It seems unique enough to me that I don't think anybody's gonna come and copy that, right? If they did, it would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
So I don't, like, if they try to go and put something in the window, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
see that this is a one situation and a one use and one purpose, that they can't just say, oh, well, they do it at the mini Melba.
But then
Yeah.
they will go to Dan though, and Dan will say, yeah, but the rule is there's a certain percentage of the amount of time you can do it, et cetera. And that will probably deter.
Well, I wouldn't
A good
even
chunk of
say
it.
that there's a certain amount of time. I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, both sides are correct. It is setting a precedent, because currently we don't allow any off-site advertising to this extent in the downtown. Most of the advertising that the applicant had mentioned is for the business that's within that building. It's not off-site. That's the key difference, even in the sign code for for the city. If you have, even a truck parked at your business and it has such and such business, it's not a big deal. It's on site for that business. But if you go and park that truck, again, at some other corner or down the road, and that business is not taking place there, that's off-site signage. Now, you're correct in that there's some control there, because it still isn't allowing him to have 100% billboard or off-site signage. There is some limitations to that. But if somebody else were to come back with some type of, like I said, similar use, I don't know what it would be, and they wanted to incorporate some advertising to help pay for it, there's definitely precedence there to say, you let him, why aren't you letting me?
I don't think so. I think a lot of the things that we do here, we don't just let everybody do it. A lot of things are a certain circumstance and special circumstance situation. That has happened multiple times since I've been right here.
Well, yeah, I'm saying, that, you know, again, I'm not saying it's not unique, it definitely is in that, but there could be instances, and I don't know. It's just like this particular instance in itself. This wasn't anything that we had thought about for the downtown. We hadn't, you know, even if we would have had updated guidelines, this wasn't an element that would be in there saying you can, or here's how you can or you can't do it in that. And no code ever is gonna have that, but at the same time, you know, I would say that we can't simply just always say no to everything because our guidelines are, you know, not accommodating for kind of, you know, looking outside the box or thinking outside the box type stuff. Just like what we have with the zoning code, there's things that come up where it wasn't thought of at the time, but we have to look at compatibility, so. All I'm saying is, I can't say that there's not 100% no that it doesn't set a precedent, but do I think it sets one that is going to be troublesome? Probably not. But it's, again, hard to say because we don't know. This may be the only instance this ever comes about. And again, on my end, the only thing that helps is it does have control to stay within the district. We're not talking about it becoming a community-wide issue, which then would be troublesome.
So do you see this ever being light or displayed in a way that can be compared to a electric billboard sign?
No, we're using projection. I mean, it's just like inside the movie theater. It's
Right, so.
soft light projection. Like I said, the street light is even more luminous than what we're doing.
Right, but the thought is that it's just not revolving ads all the time.
Yeah, no.
Correct.
That's what
That's
Dan and I
exactly
talked
what
about.
it
That's
is
why we
now.
were setting a limit of how much it
Yes.
can be.
Okay.
And not exceed that.
And, yeah, and just to add, if obviously those are conditions of approval, then that gives us the teeth to regulate that. So
Yes.
obviously, if we find out or go down there and visually see that there's all of a sudden nothing but a billboard, you know, at that point, we will tell them to either not do it or shut it down, type of thing. So that's the thing, there's always control on the code enforcement side to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. And again, with conditions, we can do that.
And then that would set the precedence, and for anybody else that wants to do it, they've got to do the same thing.
Oh, absolutely,
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying, like, yeah. like-
Oh, yeah, because, yeah, even the conditions in that, absolutely, yeah, because we would never, I don't think, there's never going to be an instance where we, meaning the community or even the commission, would want to have a 24/7 billboard downtown
Right.
that's advertised.
And
Yeah.
that, essentially, that's what I was trying to get at, that it
Yeah,
did
right.
not turn into where it looked like a revolving billboard downtown. We don't allow
Yeah.
billboards
Yeah, which I think
downtown.
you guys can vote to make that to where that can never
That's the
happen.
stipulation,
Yes,
yeah.
it is, yes, very much so.
Which stores are already kind of doing that?
The Ghost Walk usually had a little video in their store.
Screen.
I think
Yeah.
well, I don't know, I say taekwondo, I don't know what it is.
Jiu-jitsu.
Martial
Martial
arts.
arts.
yeah,
Jiu-jitsu place
jiu-jitsu.
has one.
They had, and again, the reason it wasn't really an issue is it's advertising the business that's in that
Right.
building. And it was a very small portion, you know, it didn't take up an entire window, in that, so. Because even if the applicant wanted to have a little TV in his thing showing beef jerky, we're not gonna get worried about it.
Yeah, you don't really notice those unless you consciously go and look for it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, it's definitely a very secondary use.
Well, I suppose we don't know unless we try it. We don't know unless we vote on it. It is something that can be called back. It's something we can follow up on. I'd like to follow up on it to see how it's going. I would like to see that the advertising not exceed 25% of the actual airtime. Don't want to cut into profits, but I think that that will also allow for it not to have that taste of a revolving billboard sign or signage at all in regards to a billboard. And then if it seems to, that can be flexible and that's something that can be worked out later, and it seems like it's not enough airtime, that's something that you could always bring back. And
Oh, no,
discuss more,
25% is,
at a later date, but I feel like that would probably be more helpful than 40% and it actually turning into a billboard that is projecting advertising. So, and then taking away from your nostalgia of what you're actually trying to do in the creative process of showing old films as well. Anybody else?
I'd like to look into the HP ordinance a little more in depth before I make a decision on this.
Chris, when were you wanting to start airing?
this Friday, I think.
Are businesses liking this? Are they signing up for this?
Oh, yeah.
How many in
about
the
30%
30%?
sold advertising.
Oh, what types of businesses in town have done it? Said John Vance is doing it.
Yeah, there are posters up in the window now, you can see that. And then plenty of other local businesses. Because some of them are gonna be doing past poster advertising and stuff like that in their ads. I don't really want to
Oh, okay.
disclose who they are.
Yeah.
They have their own little surprise unveilings that they wanna do.
Oh, okay. I got it.
All right, well, I mean, I guess the only thing left to do is just, if we put that down at 25% is going to be the stipulation that I have at this point, we can put it up for a vote. I feel like that's the only thing to do. If it fails, we come back and try again. If it doesn't, then we move forward. Yeah,
Is there a motion?
I have a motion to approve HPC application number 24-007 with advertising not to exceed 25% of the actual airtime.
I'll
But just to
second.
clarify, the three conditions that I had indicated, but changing the 40% to 25%?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so we have a motion. and
I'll second.
Second, all right. Nathan Turner,
Yes.
Anita Charlatan,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
No.
Darrell Covington,
No.
Mineka Gibbs,
Yes.
and Jason Wells.
Yes.
All right, so it passes 4-2.
I would like a follow-up though, after you.
Yeah, yeah. You'll all be invited.
All right, number 5 is staff comments.
I have none.
Commissioner comments? Done? All right, that makes